Your ignorant kind wants to tear down statues of our great leaders, eradicate our borders, and turn our country into a godless hellscape. Well, the country's already a godless hellscape, and I think you guys are actually responsible for that one. If I had to hazard a guess at your ideology. And yeah, borders are cringe, so are you. I don't know, that's all I got. Welcome to chat, by the way. We're talking about ideologies. You may have noticed Hitler is at the bottom. Very controversial opinion to people like Biggity Bopper. I know, very bold take. Sounds like a liberal. That's actually, I think this is the language of fascism, the language of modern fascism. You know, there's some subtle distinctions. Keep in mind as well, at the time of the classical liberal philosophers like Adam Smith, Rousseau, and Locke, borders were not a thing. They only existed insofar as you could determine where to collect tax from. The movement of people was more or less pretty free across Europe and America. Borders are a very modern invention. In fact, the ideology you could very most closely tie a national border to, more of a traditionalist personally. Okay, so you're a fascist, I guess, right? Nice. The closest ideology that you could tie the border of a nation state to is fascism, because if you were looking at classical liberalism, the sort of golden age of liberal thinking, there were no borders. Borders were open. They had to be invented in order to be closed. You know? Adam Smith would say that borders are cringe because he's all about freedom, free trade, free movement. Let's see. What else can I do? Oh yeah, here we go. Third way. This is another easy one that I can pick out. Boom. Third way. Third way liberalism is mostly just neoliberalism by a different name. These aren't like ranked within the tiers really. But, you know, belongs right next to neoliberalism because that's basically what it is. You have in this picture, I believe that's Tony Blair, and then that's obviously Bill Clinton. Their legacy is NAFTA, the hollowing out of America and Britain, respectively. Tony Blair's legacy being as well the departure of the Labour Party from, well, the laborers and their abandonment of the working class, and ultimately a lot of the state of decay that the UK is in right now can be attributed to this guy right the fuck here, and in no small part the decay of America can be attributed to this fucking guy next to him. You know? NAFTA was fucking disastrous, as was workfare, as was, a lot of stuff. What do you think about a united world if I come back to what Adam and you think and me? I think that a united world is a fundamentally good idea. A single world government, in a way it is like idealistic thinking, but really, the united world is probably, good. That's better than if everything got kept to the nation state form, especially because in a way that world already exists. Capital is truly international. All these businesses, these fucking opportunistic shitheads like Bezos and Musk and Zuckerberg and whatever, people are getting zucked in the third world. People are getting zucked in Russia and France and UK. That shit doesn't know any border restrictions, I'm just gonna put you in the hole for a minute. There you go. But yeah, capitalism is already borderless. We already live in a globalized society. There is already a united world for the capital class, right? I'm actually, Biggity Bopper, excuse me. If you're still here, actually, the 10 minutes was just the auto timer. I will untime you out once I'm done explaining this. The only way that a global world doesn't exist right now is for the working class. In fact, a lot of Marxists in the 19th century were advocating for this because at the time, capital was also restricted to national borders. The difference between then and now is that capital was able to realize a globalistic vision first. If the workers were able to capitalize on that same thing, if the workers were able to unite across borders in a meaningful sense, if there was global class solidarity, we would get a socialist world government. Everywhere would be, in a way, we would have a global movement towards democracy, towards progressive economic values towards the revaluation of the working class, the ascendancy of the working class, and capital would shit themselves. It hasn't even happened yet, and capital has already shit themselves over the concept of it. That's where a lot of the excuse me, I hit the microphone. That's where a lot of the nationalism of the early 20th century came from. It was manufactured by a globalizing capital class in order to prevent working classes across borders from realizing those sentiments. And, you know, it existed even before Hitler's time. Luxemburg was one of the first people to see this developing in the socialist movement, and she lambasted a lot of her contemporaries for leaning into very nationalistic rhetoric, because nationalistic politics is antithetical to class politics. You know, a lot of the socialists of the time were advocating stuff like Polish independence, national independence, at which point she was, you know, telling them, you fucking moron. If you create Poland, you know, if you create a new independent state here, now all you've done is divide the working class more, because capital already doesn't know borders. It would just then be the capital class in Poland, which would then have connections across those national lines. You know? Does that make sense? Anyways. Slash. There you go. I timed you out for 1 second. You should be back now. I didn't see like an untimeout function. Nice. Hello, Editing Y2K here. This is just one part of a multi-part series of me ranking all the ideologies that I know enough about to comment on. It took place over the course of 2 live streams earlier in the year, and the other parts will be all available on a playlist if you're interested. Please check it out, and thank you for watching.